Hi guys, Rob from Rob's Model Cars, and welcome back to part 3 of how to build the Pocher 1/8 scale Lamborghini Aventador Roadster. Now, I wanted to start assembly today, so first things first, it's a very good idea to actually read through the instruction booklet. On the first page, it's actually got some assembly instructions here which basically show what has to be screwed. Some pieces have to be glued. There's a pay attention icon as well, which is noted throughout the assemblies, and there's also some links to YouTube where Pocher has updated some updated video instructions on certain assemblies, but it's pretty straightforward, very detailed instruction booklet, so it's just a good idea just to familiarize yourself with the instruction booklet, what has to be screwed, what has to be glued, and get out the parts required for each assembly. They say you should test fit everything first, just make sure you know how it sort of goes together. That's a pretty good idea. I would suggest to do that. And starting off with the assembly, starts off with the interior. So we're at number 1 here, and this is basically the interior pan, putting the seats together and the center console. Now, before we move on to the assembly, I want to show you one of the first modifications I've made to this kit already, and that is the assembly pan, so and the front of the footwell. So you can see these two pieces actually bolt together, or screw together I should say, like so. And what I've done, I've added some flocking powder to these pieces. So I've done a separate video on how to flock model pieces, very basic. I just use some Tamiya XF1 flat black enamel, and I just brush that on with a wide brush, and then I'm using the parts box is the brand name, and this is a really fine flocking powder. It does a really good job. So I've done the whole footwell area where the pedals go in, and the whole floor section as well. So that is something that I wanted to do to add a bit more realism to this large scale model, so that because it is a Roadster, once it's all assembled you can see that it actually has a carpeted interior. So that's what I wanted to do first. I've done that. Now, I was having a look at the other parts. Obviously all these parts are like a model kit, so they come on these big sprues, and what I noticed was, I've cut this one of the dashboards off. What I've noticed, I don't know whether you can see, yeah, you probably can, there are some mold marks and some, well, it's not a smooth black. Now you can just assemble this kit, cut all the pieces off and start putting it together, but I'm not really happy. It is smooth, but you can see there's a few discoloration marks and such in the plastic pieces. So rather than just cut all these pieces off and start assembling them, I've decided that I'm going to repaint all these black parts. Now, I haven't had a chance to do all of those parts yet, so what we're going to do today is move on to some more custom modification to this kit. In the meantime, I'll get all these pieces painted. But in first assembly here, it also identifies the seats. Now, what I've done, I've already assembled one of these seats, and I've done a few little tricks to it. So you can probably see there that I have painted all the red stitching on the seats. Now, the good thing with these large scale models is that it has all little indentations where the stitching is. So what I've done, I've gone ahead and I've painted all the red stitching, and because I'm building a Pirelli edition Aventador, you can see that I've also added the red Pirelli stripe and a red Lamborghini crest decal to the seat also. So I think that makes this seat look a much more detailed piece to go in such a large scale model. Now, I've only just done this one because I'm going to actually show you how to do all this coloured stitching in these seats. So you can see here, this is just the standard black rubber seat facing. It does come with the hard plastic backing. I'm probably going to actually repaint that one by hand because you only see just the edge of it, and the back of it will be against the rear bulkhead of the interior. So I didn't spray these first. I've actually glued this rubber front onto the seat backing, but I can get away with just brush painting that. So this is the second seat. This is the passenger side seat. I've got to do the driver's seat. So as you can see, compare the two together, what a difference painting in some stitching makes. So there you go, you can see. I think it adds a huge amount of realism to this model kit. So yeah, let's get started. I'm going to actually show you how I do this red stitching on these seats. So again, I'm using some Tamiya X7, which is just a red. And what I always do with these modifications is I always do a little bit of a test. So before I actually did all the red paint outs in the stitching here, I just wanted to test that my Tamiya thinner would not react with the rubber. So you always want to test something like this first. So I'm using some X20 Tamiya thinner. This is enamel thinner. I just put some on a Q-tip and I'll just rub it on the back in a non-conspicuous place just to make sure there's going to be no reaction with what I'm applying it to. So you can see that it wipes off, no problem. It will dry, that will evaporate away, but it doesn't eat the rubber or do anything like that. So you always want to check in a non-conspicuous place when you're doing some sort of a mod like this to make sure that it's not going to react. Now next I'm just going to use a Tamiya brush with a soft bristle, not too big. Just shake this paint up. And what we want to do here, because it has an indented panel, I might just zoom this in a little bit more. Okay, so using the Tamiya red paint, we'll start with the top one here. So what I want to do, I just want to fill all the indentations of the stitching, and you can run right around the whole seat. I do it in stages, so I'll do the left side first, right side first. I won't do the whole thing. And basically you want that to, you don't want to put a crazy amount of paint on there, but I do want to be a bit generous so that it does sit inside those little indentations. So you can see there's quite a bit of paint on there, and I'll do the whole seam on this one. So I'll go right down to the base of the seat, and we're going to wipe off the excess. So this trick I use for a lot of other different pieces as well, but this is going to work well, as you can see on the finished seat that I've just showed you. This does work a treat. So we're going to do the side seam here as well, and you'll see where the paint goes into that indentation, and that's about it. If I miss any spots, or you miss any spots, you can actually go back and do this procedure several times until you get all the paint where you want it. Couple of little spots there I missed, and that's the first stage, is just to paint and fill all those little indentations with the red paint. Now we'll just let that dry for a little bit, and what I'm using is just some Q-tips. I get these from a chemist store in Australia. Now these ones actually have a round but flat head on them. I find these ones work a lot better than your usual round ones. These have a point on them, which are good for other model tricks, but for the seats we want to use these ones. So they have a flat, I think they're designed for removing women's makeup, but these have a flat head on them. So these are what I want to use. Also just want a bit of paper towel as well, and I'll dip the Q-tip into the Tamiya thinner. I'll remove the excess. I'll just pat that on the paper towel, because if you have too much, if it's too wet and there's too much thinner on there, when we start wiping this off, it'll just pull all the paint out of the stitching. So I want it damp. And then what I'll basically do, using the flat against the flat, I'll just rub the Q-tip all the way along. And now it's best to flip it over a few times and keep using new Q-tips. You don't want to keep using the same Q-tip once it's got heaps of thinner on it, or paint I should say. When it's got a lot of red paint on it, it's just going to dirty the job. So yeah, just keep, you can see that start red already. So as soon as it starts getting too red, I'll just use another Q-tip. So you will go through quite a few Q-tips, but it's for the best results. It's the best way to do it. Now you can see it's all the excess paint is getting quite runny there, so I will just use another Q-tip just to basically mop all that up. And you can see that the paint is starting to stay in the recessed holes of the stitching. See, that's too dirty, get rid of that one, and we'll use another one just to keep cleaning all that excess off. So yeah, just check how you're going there. There's a few spots there where you can see it's not quite dotted, it's a bit more solid. So what we'll do, we'll get another Q-tip, just dab it a couple of times, and we'll just go over that whole area again. Flip it over so that you're not smudging all the red paint excess everywhere. The side's pretty good there. And then I'll use another dry clean one just to remove any wet thinner on there, and on the face of the seat as well. Okay, so just having a look at that, you can see that's come out pretty well. Now you are getting the indentations either side of the stitching, and the red line in the middle, like that is a fabric piping, and it's as easy as that. So as I say, just keep using a dry one to remove any of the excess thinner on the part. Now as you can see, I'm not wiping the red paint there, I'm just wiping the black, but it's still a bit of red coming off, so you want to just keep going over it until there's no more red paint. And then what I'll do again, I'll use another Q-tip dipped in thinner, and what I'm doing here, I'm just cleaning the black part. I'm not going over the red stitching, so if there's any red residue on the black vinyl part, as you can see there, that's come off just from the black part. I'm just cleaning the black part. And then I'll use another dry one. And that's cleaning any of the, it's hard to see the red residue paint on the black, but it just shows that there is some on there. And just keep using a dry cloth, and I'll just keep going in between the red stitching parts just to take any residue off the black rubber or vinyl, whatever that part's made out of. And that's basically it. So you can see how a little bit of paint and a few Q-tips can actually really drastically change this part and give you the coloured stitching. Now you can do that with any colour at all. Red's quite translucent for this sort of thing, but you can use yellow, green, whatever colour you want to match to the exterior of the model. So that's basically it. That's the little trick to fill in all the red stitching. And as you can see, when it dries, wow, what a difference. It makes a huge difference. So I'm going to continue on with this and finish this one off, and then I'll apply the decals as well, or decals, however you want to pronounce it. So these decals I had custom made for this model, and I've had some made for the exterior body stripes as well. So that, I will finish that one off and apply the decals. I've done videos on how to apply decals as well, so just go and have a look in my how-to playlist, and if you need any help with applying decals, you can have a look at that. Okay, so that was about another, well, it's only about 10 minutes. It's actually a really quick process to do, and you can see that I've now added the stitching to all parts of the seat, including the split in between this front cushion. So as I say, it's a really easy process to do. I've still just got to go over this a couple more times with just some clean Tamiya thinner on a cotton stick, and just to give these basically a bit of a clean, make sure there's no red residue on there that's going to make the black seat back colour cloudy or anything like that, and of course this will evaporate off the part as well anyway. So I'm just going to go and give that one more of a clean up, and then I can apply my decals to the seat. So that one will end up like the one I've already completed, just the stripe will be on the opposite side because this will be the driver's seat, this one. So there is another little modification for this model. So there's two very easy ones to do there. As I say, adding flocking powder to the floor pan and then adding the stitching onto the seat. So you already get the idea that that makes a huge difference to this large scale model, and any extra detail we can add to this model, the better. It's going to make the end result look much, much better. Okay, now that's the seats done. I'm going to move on and I'm going to do a little bit of customization to another part of this model. Now we're jumping to nearly the back of the book because I'm going to do a little modification to the wheels that fit on this model. Now there is another one of these little warning signs or attention sign for the tyres, and if you look up the top of the book here, it says use a hairdryer and heat the tyre up for 1 to 2 minutes just to soften it up, because you cannot put the tyre on the rim just by stretching it over. It won't fit. Now I'll show you what I've already done. I did some yesterday, and these are the tyres fitted on the front wheels, and as you can see I've added some Pirelli P0 lettering and red stripes. Again, I had these decals custom made for this model project, and these are the rear ones as well, so quite big, beefy. You can see the size of these wheels, they're absolutely huge. If you follow me on Instagram, you would have seen a post I did yesterday where I sat 3 of these wheels next to a 1/18 scale Aventador Roadster, and 3 wheels sitting together were as big as the actual 1/18 scale car. So these are quite massive, as you can see. We're going with the whole red stripe Pirelli theme on this model. It is going to be a Pirelli edition in Rosso Mars red with the black roof with all the red striping. So yeah, these are the wheels that I did yesterday. So we'll get those out of the way, and I'll explain, or I'll actually show you how these tyres fit. They're quite solid. They are rubber, but they're very solid, and as I say, you cannot slip them over the wheels. I've just got, this will be handy for the build for cutting all the parts off these plastic sprues. These are just some photo etch side cutters, and you can use these to basically cut the parts away from the plastic sprues. So we'll just cut that away. This is the one last front wheel that I have not done yet. Don't throw that away because it's actually got the tyre valves in there. Just make sure you follow all the instructions so you don't throw anything away. Now, as I say, there is a little bit of a lip either side that the tyre will sit on, and these are an asymmetrical P0 tyre. So where you can see these double blocks together, that's actually the inside of the tyre. So this is the outside of the tyre. And what we want to do, I don't want to heat the whole tyre up and deform the outside edge. Okay, so let's put it this way. So that's the outside. It's going to go on that way. So because I want a nice tight fit around the rim, I don't want to heat up the outside. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to heat up the inside of the tyre and then push it over the front of the wheel, how they would do a real tyre on a rim. And that way all I'm doing is stretching the back side of the tyre to get over the centre hump. Okay, hopefully you understand that. So I've just stolen my wife's hairdryer, and I'm just going to put this down on the bench, and I'm just going to heat up for about 1.5 minutes just the outside edge of this tyre, and I will rotate the tyre a little bit just to heat this up. Now you probably want to check your hairdryer, just some might be hotter than others. That's made it soft enough. So what I'll do, I'm pushing the tyre on from the front of the rim. I've just got to stretch it a little bit with the fingers, get one part over and then work your way around and push the tyre onto the rim. And you'll feel that when it gets over the bump. There we go. Now I haven't stretched the front edge of the tyre so it seats nicely around the rim. I only heated up the back side to get over that middle hump, and then basically just run your fingers all the way around, make sure it's seated on that plastic rim properly. And that's using Pocher's little method there, heat up the tyre with a hairdryer to get it over the rim. So again, all I have to do is add some decals to it. Again, I've done videos on how to apply decals. Just look in the how-to playlist and you will see the video on how to do decals. So there's 3 modifications for this video that I've done for this Pocher model. One being the seats with the stitching, so hopefully you guys, anyone can do that. It's a really easy thing to do. The second one is to apply the flocking powder to the interior. Again, another really easy thing to do. And yeah, another little trick just to put the tyres on and to add some tyre decals as well, which obviously for this Pirelli themed model is really going to set off the car in black and red. So that is basically it for today's video. As I say, I will try and get all these plastic parts painted in black, because as I say, I'm not happy with the finish on there, and I think it will, you know, these are an expensive model kit, so I don't want things like that to detract from the model. So I'm going to paint all of these black parts with some Tamiya paint, either automotive base coat black or some Tamiya black. I haven't decided yet, just waiting for the weather to get good to do some painting. But another thing I did also before I start the build, I've just got another one of my plastic organisers, and there's a lot of screws that come with this kit. Now there is 14 bags of screws labelled A all the way through B, C, D, all the way up to N. So rather than have 14 open bags of screws on my bench that I may knock off and lose some, I've added them all into my divider. So I've just put little labels on there, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. And I've taken them all out of the bag so that they're all here, so that when I actually start assembling the model, I can just get whatever screws are needed that are mentioned in the instruction booklet. So each assembly has different screws. So this interior, this would be the first stage. This has a couple of H screws and it has a couple of K screws. So just going to make assembly a little bit easier if you organise like this. And that way hopefully we won't lose any screws. So that's just another little tip to give you guys before you start your build. But that's pretty much going to wrap up for part 3. I've got to add some more decals to this seat and this tyre and rim combination. So yeah, that's stay tuned for part 4. Part 4, I will have all these black plastic parts painted and we'll start putting the interior together, and then the next stage after that is to assemble the engine. So if I don't get a chance to paint all the black parts, then part 4 will definitely move on to the engine and start assembling the engine. So that's it for today's video. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do. Don't forget to smash that like button. Feel free to share the video, and don't forget about all my social media links. So we're on Facebook, Instagram, Rob's Model Cars, and I do sell some models and some car parts on eBay as well, and my seller name there is Rob's Model Cars. So yeah, that's it. Hopefully there's some good tips for you guys there that you might want to do to your Pocher builds as well. So yeah, stay tuned. Part 4 will be out shortly. And again, thanks for following this series. I hope it's been helpful, and stay tuned for part 4. So until next time, thanks for watching Rob's Model Cars.